Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be diving into a few questions off the word knowledge portion of the ASVAB. Keep practicing and get that score up.
When I think of noble, I think of two different things. One, I think of being of noble character, and I also think of like a noble of a kingdom. In this case, looking at these options, I am looking at aristocratic here would be very similar to that idea of being like a noble of a kingdom. So I'm going to say that this answer is C, aristocratic. So I feel like number 2 is actually telling you the answer much more clearly than some of the others. John initially disagreed with Megan, but then he had to concede her point about the budget. So concede means like you're going to give up, you're going to admit they're right. So when I'm looking through these things, argue wouldn't be that because you're not admitting. Understand, well, I mean, that's good, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to admit that you understand. Counter and, admit is actually one of the words. So we're going to go with D, admit. So for number 3, if I'm going to goad someone into doing something, it means like I'm going to try to make them or convince them or get them to do some type of action. So when we're looking through these, listen, provoke, pacify, and ignore, well, listen isn't getting someone to do something either as being pacify or ignoring or any of that. So we're going to go with B. I'm going to provoke them to do an action, meaning I'm going to get them to do it. I'm going to try to like convince them to do it or make them emotionally desire to do so. As a teacher, I understand this one far too well. Teenagers at the mall love to roam in a herd. So a herd is usually referred to as animals, but it's when you have like a group of sheep or something like that walking around, that's your herd. So in this case, we're looking for something that would be the same as a group. Well, a jacket's something you wear, you're walking in a line, a pack, and a ratio. Well, a pack would be the only thing here, also referred to a lot of times with animals as they travel in packs. So we're going to say C. So for number 5, it says that panicking in an emergency is not a viable response for an EMT. So viable in this case means like it's not irrational, it's not an okay, you're not allowed to do it, it's not a good choice, that's not what you should do. Which makes sense because panicking, if you're an EMT, you're supposed to be saving people in an emergency, not panicking yourself. So looking through these, which one of these would that be closest to? Well, total doesn't make sense. Collective, I'm not really even sure where that would fit in there. Lucid, not even the right mindset, that doesn't make sense. Workable would probably be your closest. It's not a workable response, so we'll go with D. So judicious means like you have good judgment, like you are making good decisions. So when I'm looking through these, accessible, cold, wise, or talkative, I feel like wise would be the closest to being someone who makes good decisions. So this answer is going to be C. Hesitating in a time of crisis can often lead to failure. In this case, hesitating means like you're briefly stopping for a second or whatever beforehand. So broadening wouldn't be it. Creating, you're not making anything here. Leaving, nope. But pausing would be the same thing as stopping for a second, so the answer here is D. Applicants who insist on falsifying information ruins the process for everyone. So if we look at the options down here of fabricating, listing, furthering, and taking on, falsifying most closely means the fact that they're lying about what they're putting on there. They're not telling the full truth. Now, out of these 3 don't really match with that at all, but fabricating is another way of saying like you're extending the truth, you're saying something that is not exactly true. So that's going to be the closest to falsifying here, option A. Applicants who insist on falsifying information ruins the process for everyone. So if we look at the options down here of fabricating, listing, furthering, and taking on, falsifying most closely means the fact that they're lying about what they're putting on there. They're not telling the full truth. Now, out of these 3 don't really match with that at all, but fabricating is another way of saying like you're extending the truth, you're saying something that is not exactly true. So that's going to be the closest to falsifying here, option A. So for number 10, we're looking at the word coax here, and it most nearly means which of these? Well, coax kind of means like you're trying to convince someone to do something they don't want to do, or maybe something you want them to do. So advise wouldn't really be it, because that would be like you're trying to give them the advice, so it might be something they want. Trade, that could be like you're trading for something you want, but not really convincing them why. Plead would be a little bit closer. Grace doesn't really make sense here. So I would say in this case, their best answer is probably you're going to plead with them, try to convince them to do what it is you want.
That's all the content we're covering today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button below to help me out. Also, remember, you can subscribe to my channel to see a lot more videos like this one. In fact, you can get started on some of the videos over here, and hopefully you're going to be ready for your next attempt at the ASVAB.